I call to order Planning Commission, regular session, Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, October 4th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Strube present.
McCoy present.
Grossman present.
Buda present.
We have a quorum. Let us stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Does anyone object to approval of the consent agenda? Hearing no objection, the consent agenda will be taken by unanimous consent. The Cape Charles Planning Commission will hold public hearings on Tuesday, October 4th at 6 p.m. in the Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, to receive comment on the following applications. A zoning text amendment 2022-02 application from the town of Cape Charles to amend section 4.2, Boleg J, accessory dwelling units, and section 2.9, definitions associated with accessory dwelling units. B, a zoning text amendment 2022-03 application from the town of Cape Charles to remove proffers that were accepted and approved on November 13th, 2008 as part of the Keck property rezoning and recorded in the Northampton County Clerk of Courts as instrument number 0900002549 and affecting the following parcels. Tax map 90-19-B, owner is Town of Cape Charles, location is 2443 Old Cape Charles Road. Tax map 9019-A, General Builders LLC, locations Old Cape Charles Road. Tax map 90-29-3, owners General Builders LLC, 2401 Old Cape Charles Road. Tax map 902-29-4, General Builders LLC, locations 2403 Old Cape Charles Road. Tax map 90-29-2, owner is CEM Investments LLC, location 2405 Old Cape Charles Road. Tax map 90-29-1, owners General Builders LLC, location 2407 Old Cape Charles Road. I now open the public hearing.
For ZTA 2022-02, we have discussed this at length. This went to the town council for their input before we advertise this to public hearing. They did make one correction or suggestion relative to the definition of kitchen. That was added into the draft document, and with that, we went out to public hearing on it. So specifically, the items that we're seeking to change relative to accessory dwelling units, we're adding a new section with a statement of intent. We are also adding a little bit of language correction in the original ordinance of 4.2J, taking out that this requires a conditional use permit to receive. This would move over to a by right use. We're looking to add a definition associated with transient occupancy, sometimes referred to as short-term rentals, and specifically indicating that accessory dwelling units would not be allowed for short-term rental. We have further clarified that we are looking to have the length of stays to occur for 30 days or longer. We also clarified that the use of an accessory dwelling unit can be used by the extended family members of the property owner without it having to be a rental capacity, or their guests, I should say. Other requirements that we are seeking to add to this: to have its own municipally issued trash receptacles for the accessory dwelling units separate from the main residence, to meet all the requirements of this ordinance, as well as with our building official. And with that, we are looking to add 2 annual certifications become a part of this. One, compliance with the zoning certification, as well as a safety certification. And we have provided a sample of that safety checklist affidavit that we would be looking for property owner to complete. We have added definitions of kitchen, and again, specifically what the town council added, a space within a structure, and now this is the addition, designated for the cooking and preparation of food that includes a sink and a refrigerator. All the other definitions you have seen before: bathroom, bedroom, and sleeping area. And that is what we are proposing to amend the zoning ordinance with, relative to accessory dwelling units.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this?
I'll make a motion that we close public comments on the ADU portion of the hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the ADU portion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Okay, your second public hearing is relative to ZMA and ZTA 2022-03. This is relative to a proffer condition that was placed on these properties as listed many years ago when it came forward in 2008 from the then property owner, Alan and Gail Keck, seeking to rezone those parcels. And with that, they put forward certain conditions that they were going to establish with those if the rezoning was approved by the town council. And then, sorry for the little history, if you guys don't mind me going into it. It's a total of 33, just over 33 acres that were involved in that rezoning request. At that time, it was one giant parcel. Since then, it has been divided a few times. What's known as the Keck Well property, which is about 17 acres, as part of that rezoning application and approval that was granted by the town also reached an agreement with the Kecks to acquire that property. And part of that acquisition dealt with the need to establish a new well site for the town, and that was the property that was chosen for that application. Then there was about 15 acres that was kept by the Kecks, with proffers being established on those, that were then eventually sold by the Kecks to General Builders LLC for redevelopment. And then since then, the General Builders LLC have subdivided a component of that property. They carved off 4 one-acre lots that front right on Old Cape Charles Road for further development. With that development, they submitted a site plan to the town approved it to allow for one structure on each acre lot, and within that structure, they would establish 4 apartment units within that. So a total of 16 apartments could be built on those 4 acres at the front of Old Cape Charles Road. I will make you aware at that time, there was no water or sewer service to that lot, to any of those lots, and the town did agree for them to establish well and septic service individually for each of their proposed lot developments. And so that is where they stand today. As part of that, there are proffers associated with all of that total property. Some of it dealing with density development as to how many housing units could go on there. Other proffers are dealing with buffer requirements, landscaping, additional landscaping requirements associated with the parcels. At this point in time, the town has been in conversation since about early spring of this year with a developer who would like to do workforce housing projects on the piece of land that is still owned by General Builders LLC, which right now is just over 11 acres. They're not interested at this point in the 4 one-acre lots. They are interested only in the 11 acres at the backside, which, as you now know, has frontage on Cassatt Parkway, the new roadway that has come into being with the town. As part of that conversation, we've been trying to work through what might be issues impeding any development of that lot for this purpose. It's saying we've reached agreement for a workforce housing type project. What else is focused in preventing that from moving forward, either from the town side or from the developer side? The developer is in the midst of a due diligence phase with General Builders LLC for the purchase of that lot, but no closing has been scheduled yet, as we're working through what might be any stumbling blocks or hindrances to that development project. So as part of that, what we have now received is a letter of intent from the developer, which you have received, expressing their desire for this project and some of the hindrances that we're trying to overcome. One of them being the Keck property proffer statement, which has been recorded in the clerk's office and does make all of the property, including the town's lot, susceptible to those conditions and requirements for any development that may occur out there. So we, at this point, Town Council reviewed this at their September meeting, and they voted to send this matter to public hearing as quickly as possible, so we have moved it forward for tonight's matter. We have also sent out notification not only to the existing property owners of the lots in question, but the surrounding area as well. So all the adjacent parcels received notification of this hearing, and we're all provided a copy of the proffers that we are requesting removal. And again, as I mentioned, they are dealing with both a limitation of density development that would be chosen to be removed, as well as the landscape, the increased landscaping requirements, the buffer requirements across all the property as a whole. So that's the basis of what we're going to public hearing on this evening. No questions? I'll step away.
Anybody have any questions of Katie?
Well, I'll just ask clarification there. When you talked about well and septic being approved for each of these 4 plots, I just want to clarify that that is going to be available until such time as the town runs water and waste.
That's correct. In our town ordinance and town code, there are requirements that if there's not well and septic out there, it really becomes the responsibility of the developer to extend it. That was not the arrangement that was reached with General Builders LLC back in the mid-90s when this was moving forward for approval. The town did not have any near plans of extending water and sewer out to this property, and they put the onus on the property owner that they could go ahead and do their development if they were able to achieve health department approval for well and septic. And typically under your town code, you're not allowed to have well and septic installed. We have continued to work with General Builders LLC as they move their project forward, and actually one of their lots was just received a certificate of occupancy on that. That 4-unit, the 4-apartment unit building has been approved and it's all closed. It's now been sold to another party. As part of that agreement, we memorialized the requirement that if and when town water and sewer are extended, and upon town notification to them, they will have a limited period of time to disconnect the existing well and septic system servicing that one building and connect into the town system at their own expense. So we have continued to affirm our rights under our town code relative to water and sewer service. We are now actively working for a variety of reasons, not just because of this project, but for some additional stimulating causes occurring in our water needs. We are moving forward with trying to extend full water and sewer out to this property. There are still ongoing conversations with the proposed developer as to what will be their cost obligations or shares relative to that project as well.
Katie, I may have missed sequence here, but I saw something in the definitions that caught my attention. The last sentence of sleeping area, the second word.
Wait, we're going backwards,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll end up coming back to discuss.
Okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
we will.
Just with
That's
the
fine.
public
Yes.
hearing.
That's
Yeah.
fine, that's fine.
I'm just
Wanna
trying
make
to
sure.
set the stage and allow any public testimony that may wish to come in.
Got it.
Any other,
Any other points you want me to clarify? Okay.
okay, so,
So, just a quick question. So, right now, the way it currently stands is, if this 11-plus acres were to be developed, they would have to be under a well and septic system for right now, right?
No, actually, part of this conversation is that we would have to address well and septic being extended to these properties for any development concept to be considered or advanced forward from the town at this point in time. The only one that could still move forward until we actually can confirm we have water and sewer there are the remaining 3 one-acre lots that have not been developed by General Builders LLC. They still have an approved site plan with the town that's good for another year under the Code of Virginia. Site plans are good for 5 years. And so they still are in active approval and can proceed with that development of each one of those lots with installing the well and septic on it for each one of those lots to service whatever their approved plan calls for. But they also know they're now being put on notice that if and when we do get water and sewer fully established out there that ties into the town system, they will have to disallow those connections, close them off, and connect into the town system.
thank you, Katie. So do we have public comments for this?
I do. First one up is Jody Bundy.
So
Hello, gentlemen.
please state your name and,
Jody Bundy. We live on 2510 Old Cape Charles Road, which is, I don't know if you've ever seen it, the Bonderosa. It's a farm setback.
Ah, God, okay.
Okay. Mark and I have lived there for over 30-some years, and we've tried to be good stewards to the land, plant a lot of trees, worried about the bird, the Atlantic flyway. We want to make sure that the eastern shore, we develop the proper way, if you know what I mean. So, this has really bothered me, because this man, we don't even know much about him. I know you've been working with him, but usually a developer gives you proffers, and he has written, and he wants everything. He wants you to go from 88 lots, I know 88 is what he's left with now, and I know you need workforce housing, but I don't know why 88 lots is not enough. He wants to take away the buffer zone on Old Cape Charles Road, which I don't understand why a 100-foot buffer can't still be in the works. I understand why he wants to take away the 100-foot buffer on the west side, because Bay Creek has that already. I get that. I don't understand why we have to decide this portion of the town property right now, unless he really has his sights on that as well. I'd like to slow that down. I'd like to know more about this man. He has an absence of a conceptual plan. We don't even know what he's going to build. How tall is it going to be? Is it going to, there's a 40-foot setback right now on building heights. We've allowed this General Builders to go ahead and do what he's done without a well and septic. I don't know, the other night I drove by there. I don't know if he did it or the man that sold it has put 4 sodium lights, so blinding, it's lit up more than Food Line. And I mean, we are a dark sky, and I know Dickie Foster really stuck to that, and I think it's important we try to stick to that. And I don't know who's doing this bright light, but I do beg you all to look at this. He's asking for everything. He wants you to change it all. He says what he is giving us is outdoor fire pits, community barbecues, a fishing pier at the storm water pond.
No,
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'd love you, Doc.
No, go ahead.
I'm just thinking we don't know enough about this developer, and Mark and I, over the years, have seen many good developers come, and others that we're not so sure about, that haven't been so good, that have been kind of run away. So I would like to see more of what his plans are, drawings, and I definitely want to make sure that the road goes out of Casat, because we can't handle this kind of traffic on Old Cape Charles anymore. It's too much for that smaller road.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mark Bundy?
I think she pretty much said it all, but I would like to see you delay it till you have more information on the project. And then when it comes to the land that's owned by the town.
You need to stand up and come to the microphone, sorry, sir.
Okay. When it comes to the land which is owned by Cape Charles, if that is subject to the same housing density, I'd like to see y'all get other proposals from other developers that would come in there instead of just having a single proposal. It's generally, you're going to find that a lot of the developers have to make some offers back to the towns as to what they'll give. But if I'm right, the water and sewer for this is going to be paid for by the town. I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. He's got a pretty sweet deal here. I don't know if we're really set up for that type of density on 11 acres, but I'm thinking we're coming up with 84 dwelling units on 11 acres, because it was 100, and then you take away the 16 for the existing, then we've got 84 units in there. I think that's more than just saying, okay, we're going to have workforce housing. Lastly, I'm not sure what workforce housing means. I really don't. Y'all probably do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something? I'm sorry, I did forget. It did make me a little mad when I received the letter to hear that it's a hardship for him, because I do believe he's going to get federal and state money to do this project. And if he gets the water and sewer, and then he gets to hold on to this property, and for how many years, rent it, I don't know where he is having any input except for like barbecue pits. All right, that's all I wanted to add.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion that we close public hearing on the proffer removal portion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on the proffer subject. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We have any comments other than that?
I do not have anyone signed up.
Okay, unfinished business.
There we go. Okay, good.
Zoning text amendment 2022-02, application from the town of Cape Charles to amend section 4.2, Bowlegs J, accessory dwelling units, and section 2.9, definitions associated with accessory dwelling units.
Sleeping area. Last sentence, or last line. The word following including. What is that?
No, it should be and.
Thank you. One other thing. On the proposed affidavit that was attached at the second page, about the middle of the bottom, has appeared before me in the city. We're not a city, we're a town.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we can open up for discussion. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the accessory dwelling unit changes that are being proposed as attached to our staff report.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I had two items. One's just a nit. There's an and symbol as opposed to the word and in two locations.
Okay.
All right, so if you could just change that. The other was more of a comment. I had been saying that Article 3 should be changed, and I kind of sitting on the fence on this. Article 3 deals with each of our zoning districts, and it gives a listing of permitted and then conditional use. Accessory dwelling units are not listed at all under either. It has accessory buildings and where they're allowed, and obviously you can put an accessory dwelling unit in an accessory building, but only in 4 locations. So you'd only know that if you go into Article 4 and it says specifically the 4 locations or 4 districts that it's located. And I guess my question is for clarity or ease of use, should accessory dwelling unit be added as a permitted use in Article 3 in these 4 zoning districts? I guess, Katie, if you have an opinion on that, it just, again, it's for clarity purposes only. If we convert eventually into a table format, as we're perhaps working on separately, accessory dwelling unit would be added and it shows on those 4. But right now, a person wouldn't know if I'm in R1 anything about permitted uses until I ask, and we point to Article 4 that says, oh yeah, R1 is okay.
Correct. At this point, historically, just because we've been going to Article 4 since the accessory dwelling unit language was included for the first time in the zoning ordinance. Historically, I'm accustomed to going to it. Most people are accustomed to going to it. But we could, for sense of clarity at this point, add it as a permitted use. Again, just referencing still Article 4 in this section, since they still have to adhere to this criteria outlined in Article 4.
Yeah, so with that, I'd recommend, and I'd make a motion to amend my motion, but to add permitted use in these 4 districts, accessory dwelling unit. And I guess I just ask for opinions from others.
Well, for clarity's sake, I don't see a problem with that. I either. I mean,
All right, so I'll make amend my motion to also include changes to Article 3, RE, R1, R2, and CR districts to show accessory dwelling units as a permitted use.
I say we have an amended motion on the floor. Do I have and a second? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Was that an aye, Kim?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. 6B.
Hello, we got the motion, and don't we have to come back to the motion?
Yes, because all you've done is vote on
You amended.
Oh, the amended.
amendments, and now you
I'm
need to
sorry.
vote on the entire amended document.
Yeah. Thanks.
We're all here for each other, Bill.
There's been too much going on. Okay. So, do we have a motion? Yeah, I gotta get.
Well, we have a motion and a second.
So all we need is a vote.
So you've approved all the amendments that got incorporated just now. Now you need to vote on the whole thing.
Yeah,
So like I said, we don't have a motion on that, so I need
We
a
did,
motion.
I started with a motion.
No, and you amended the motion.
You amended it.
You amended it.
Okay.
So-
I'll make a motion that we adopt then with the amendments, the accessory dwelling units language as proposed with the typo corrections there in our staff report.
Second.
And you're looking to recommend, not adopt.
You're right.
Right, yes,
Recommend
yes.
the town
Recommend.
council,
Right, because this is going to council to
Right.
actually move forward.
Correct.
So we have a motion to recommend adoption to the ADU with the amendment and the corrections. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, so in a second, any further discussion?
Well, let me just make one point about the definition of bathroom, including, this is for, more than 38 dwelling, only including a sink and a toilet. It makes reference to bathtub and showers and all like that. The thought occurs that maybe that ought to be mandatory, since it seems like people during a period of time of more than 30 days are going to need something more than a sink and a toilet. That's all. That it's in there as suggested as a good idea, but I just had trouble picturing how you could live there that long without at least one of those items. That's all.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay. Item 6B, zoning text amendment, 2022-03 application from the town of Cape Charles to remove proffers that were accepted and approved on November 13th, 2008 as part of the Keck property rezoning and recorded in Northampton County Clerk of Courts as instrument number 09002549 and affecting the following parcels. I'm just going to give the tax map numbers. 90-19-B, 90-19-A, 90-29-3, 90-29-4, 9029-2, and 902-29-1. All right. Would you like to add anything to that?
I would like to add some additional information of conversations to date that may be useful to this board. Not all of you have been involved in these conversations, but I think there may have been shared conversations over the last few months on this particular issue. So some of the things that we have been talking about, this has been focused on the General Builders LLC property of the 11 acres, which are located directly behind the 4 one-acre lots that front onto Old Cape Charles Road. As parts of those conversations, we have dealt with many things. We've raised lots of questions and issues and comments. We have seen a draft concept from the developer, just showing us what a potential building could look like, what some of the inside units could look like, both with built-in furniture components to support why he would be seeking smaller square footage development, both from a user perspective as well as from a development perspective, so that many things could be built in, such as tables, chairs, things of that nature, that you would not have to come in and supply such an apartment. One of the key issues that we hit upon first in our conversations has been with the square footage requirement that is in our zoning ordinance today for the minimum for a dwelling unit. And I meant to look this up again, and I forgot. I think it's 960, thank you, square feet is the minimum square footage.
Right.
And the developer has come back to tell us that that is actually a little larger than he would anticipate developing and what some of his understanding of the needs are here in this community for workforce housing development. So that started our conversation of how would we try and approach addressing that particular issue first. And then he also identified he would be looking to do apartment buildings of several levels, which most likely would be in excess of our height requirements. So we knew right up front, there were already two hindrances in our current ordinance that would preclude this development from proceeding in an orderly fashion or even consideration. After some thought, I went to the town manager and said, this sounds ideal for utilizing our planned unit development ordinance process, that we actually create a PUD specific for this property and this project associated with workforce housing development. And that requires a definition of workforce housing development, which includes an income level definition associated with it. And part of it also ensuring a stipulation that these would not become short-term rental units either. So we have put all of that on the table so far with the developer. He is not opposed to that pursuit at all. He has been a little nervous about further expenditure of funds into such a concept proposal until we can address some of the other concerns or hindrances that were stopping this moving forward to fruition at this point in time. Specifically, meaning he could close on the property and really start spending some money to show his intention to the community at large. With that said, we've been talking about the water access to the property. We've talked about sewer access to the property. Some of those conversations have been with the town council. Some have been because they are already in motion with the town council as part of their capital plan projects for the year. In particular, the water, and specifically the Keck Well property, was actually on the radar screen for the town before this development ever came knocking on the door of the town, because the town does need to bring that well fully online. It is a permanent part of the town's water system, but it has not actually drawn water yet, and it has not been connected into the town system. And if you look at the town's capital plan, it is scheduled for that to happen. I think it's going to fall over the 2 fiscal years, this fiscal year and next fiscal year, for that to occur.
Okay, we had planning money first.
Planning money, yes.
And again, we're bumping up against the water limits for the town, permits. And Keckwell really ends up having to meet some of those limits and improve
Yes.
quality of water within town. So
Yes.
There's a couple.
So I did want to reassure everyone, the water issue alone was on the radar screen for bringing this well online in its full capacity, regardless of this development. I just want to make everybody aware of that. The extension of the town sewer, system has accelerated on the town's capital plan because of this development, and that has been acknowledged both by the developer and is that me or him?
It's him.
Sorry. Has been acknowledged by the developer, and he is engaged in conversations with the town manager and the town council in some capacity. I'm not privy to that.
Is there something we can do?
And those are continuing to move forward. I think at this point, the town has done, they've taken one vote publicly, which is they have already engineered.
Just hold it. Ken, can you mute your end, please?
Okay,
We're getting a lot of
Yeah,
feedback.
we're getting a lot of static.
is that any better?
We'll try it.
Yeah, we'll try it. Thank you.
Town council has taken one vote publicly relative to the sewer line for moving over to this property. And I don't just mean to Mr. Marine's interest in the 11 acres. I mean the whole 33 acres, trying to extend that line. The town had already engineered through when the town was part of the Public Service Authority with the county some years ago. That had already been designed and engineered by the PSA's engineers at that time, Hurt and Profit. And those documents were turned over to the town for their ownership moving forward when the PSA dissolved itself. And so the town at this point has now extended those engineered plans over to the developer for him to pursue obtaining costs for construction and installation of said designed sewer lines. And it's actually done in three. It was done as a primary bid, and then there's two alternates to it. One, getting it directly to the General Builders LLC properties that front on Old Cape Charles Road. That's the primary bid. Then there's an alternate bid that gets it over to the town property right next door. And then there's a bid alternate number 2 that extends it to the town line, to the town limits, I should say. Since I think everyone is fully aware, there's been a conversation out there in this county of potentially the town becoming a part of or sharing somehow in what might be a regional system, and that would be a connection point potentially into that regional system. So that is the one vote I know that has taken place at the town council to move those plans over to the developer to go obtain those cost estimates for construction, so that there can be a conversation as to the cost and how that might be shared, if that's fully going to be expected for the developer to do that, or shared with the town, shared potentially even with the county in some capacity, if this is supposed to be part of a regional system in some form or fashion. So that's the bit I know of that piece of the equation. There's been no decision made relative to any of the cost sharing. So right now, we're still in a fact gathering stage relative to the sewer line. So with that said, we have continued the conversations with the developers to where we are with potentially looking at a proposed PUD ordinance. Again, what that would mean we would have to take that to public hearing. It would be advertised just like any other zoning ordinance that we do for the town. The things that we are considering within that are, yes, uses, and if you recall, under our PUD ordinance, as it stands today, it requires 2 uses be identified, residential and something else, and they give you options what those other things could be. It could be some capacity of commercial development, it could be some capacity of some conservation, open space, government use. They give us a list of those things. At this point, part of what you have seen from our proposed developer of Windmart Advisory, specifically through Lance Marine, who is the listed principal who signed the correspondence, he has provided some of the elements that he would like to see in this project as a whole. One of them, for the commercial aspect, is an EV charging station. And it's not necessarily that he is thinking everybody who would rent any of these apartment units would be having vehicles for EV charging. It's a need that we see, that he's identified in the community, and now that I've had a chance to look further into this, I don't think it's a need for us to ignore or put down. I think it is a commercial aspect that could be valid and viable as part of this project. So I just wanted to make you aware of some of these conversations that I've been a part of and where we are at this point. He recognizes that he needs a concept plan, a real drawn-out concept plan that needs to be shared with us. However, he does not want to spend those funds until he could be assured that some of these real hindrances would be at least amenable from the community, that we would look to remove these, specifically the proffers. It's not necessarily the limitation on the density that's his biggest concern. The buffer requirements were really of concern to him, because they're cost amounts that would need to be factored into any project. And so that's why, after talking with the town manager and myself and others associated with these conversations, we approached the town council with his letter, with his correspondence, and they were willing to advance this moving forward at this point in time, to let him get a feel for this community and where we stand on the proffer issue. Doesn't mean there can't be future proffers that are further applied on this property, but those existing proffers as written, he is seeking relief from those. And it would not just be for Mr. Marine and his interest in the 11 acres, it's also for the 1 acre lots of General Builders would be relieved from these proffers, as well as the town's parcel would be relieved from these proffers. And I'm not speaking for the town council, but all I can say is, in the conversations I've been involved with, the town does not have any other purpose identified for their acreage, their 17 acres at this point in time, beyond the Keck Well. And so I've not heard that we're looking for any other project to go here. It doesn't mean that can't be considered. Right. It's just not right now anywhere on their priority list or anywhere in the next 5 to 10 years that I've seen on their to-do list. So.
Yeah, and I'll reaffirm that. The Keck property is us. The proffers currently on it really tie our hands as to what we could potentially do with that land in the future. So we have no discussions with anybody on that parcel as of today. And we need the proffers removed in order to provide flexibility for our use as we decide in the future.
And so let me just understand that the proffers, because when they were originally done, were done for both, well, really it was one big parcel.
One big parcel at that
And then
time
it was subdivided since then, but the proffers,
still remain.
so they have to be for both parcels.
Yes, because when you research this in the clerk of courts records, they hit every deed associated with every parcel. So every subdivision has carried these forward with those subdivisions. And so, yes, we are looking to remove them as a whole at this point in time from when this parcel was originally rezoned. And its prior rezoning was a RE across both parcels, what I'd say the entire 33 acres. The RE still remains on the town parcel. It's still residential estates, I think that's what the RE stands for.
Right.
And only the other parcels, which they're now under the control of General Builders, or now the one lot he has sold out to, those are all zoned R3, which is a higher intensity residential development than the RE is. And again, that's what the town lot is zoned as RE. And that's not changing in any of this.
One question I had, in your recommendation there, you referred to the instrument, and the last tag numbers there with 2549.
Did I
What-
copy? Well, okay.
As the instrument carrying these particular properties. But in your package here, you show also instrument 2548 and a 16 ending with 888 that's applicable to General Builders. So do all three instruments need to be addressed?
If the town agrees to remove the original proffer condition, which was recorded, which is the number I've referenced initially,
That's sufficient?
yes, that is
To
sufficient, and
move-
we will move through and get it removed from all the subdivisions that occurred and every reference to it from
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yes.
So one more question. I just want to clarify this, that you've met with the proposed developer, and the entrance to that development would be off Cassette Parkway.
Yes. That's actually I put that out as what I would consider a requirement from a planning perspective. The town manager has also echoed that as well. With Cassette Parkway now in as the new road, we would require any development today for this parcel that it must have an entrance off of Cassette Parkway. There is a sliver of land that is still eligible as part, that touches onto Old Cape Charles Road. We would want that to be used as a secondary entrance for public safety purposes only. We have mentioned that to the developer. We have spoken with VDOT about that as a
Yeah.
requirement. VDOT is wholly in support of that and would also make that a condition of requirement for their approval to be advanced for any project. So as I said, we've done lots of initial exploration. I wish we could say we were further down the road in bringing a more concrete proposal to you, but I think we're now moving forward that we can start to require that from our developer as he starts to see the town take some actions on the issues that might prevent this development, and at least to hear from us. I don't think the comments that we've heard are wrong in any way, shape, or form. There should always be concern when we are still dealing with an unknown entity.
Right.
We don't have a relationship in terms of seeing a product.
Right.
And yes, part of this is on faith and conversation and trying to see where we can get. I am encouraged by this developer because they are not, in my experience so far, they're not a fly-by-nighter. They're investing in this community, not just for this project, but they personally have invested in this community by acquiring residential property here. So that makes it exciting from my perspective, and I think when we raise the issue of the PUD as a conversation and an avenue to approach this, PUDs are not short-term development issues. It's a lengthy process to get to a whole zoning district ordinance, and then bring it forward in that regard, and this developer has not shied away from making that the vehicle to consider this project under.
Which would require public hearings, both
yes.
at the planning commission and the
And
town
town.
council prior to going
Yes.
further. So
Right.
there is going to be visibility to what is offered.
Yes. So that's where I wanted to just clarify from some of the comments that were offered.
Okay.
Any other questions of Katie?
A comment and then a question. All of the items on the submission from Winmar are couched in the statement, such features contemplated include, they're planned only, nothing more.
That's correct.
Number two, the EV charging station, I think, has significant value. I would guess, and it's only a guess, that VDOT would require some sort of additional frontage for additional traffic coming into wherever that station is going to be placed as a business, because that's essentially what it is. Just a comment. Okay.
And just to follow up on that, in my conversations with Mr. Marine, it has been informed of him, we would look for this to be a true subdivision too, that there would have to be a road put in onto
Right.
the parcel.
Okay.
And potentially, depending on how he does his concept plan out to the community at large, it would probably be a phased development in terms of how the apartment buildings would come online, in what quantity. So yes, there would be a road consideration onto the lot itself. We haven't even approached what the commercial piece could be.
Right.
Again, that was still a conversation he was having with me as your zoning administrator to see if it would even qualify under the PUD consideration.
Right.
I've now confirmed that I would consider that. I've done a
Okay.
lot of research on EV stations and how they're run and managed and viewed. So we recognize the placement of such on a site plan is going to be critical.
Yep.
So,
Thank you, Katie.
And these are affordable housing units, for sure.
workforce housing.
Workforce
And
housing.
part
I'm
of our,
sorry. I mean,
part of our
workforce housing.
conversation is still trying to narrow down what that definition means to both of
Because it has
us.
to be within certain dollar,
Yes,
Yeah.
and right now, our conversation has been tying it into Census Bureau data and the other requirements that they establish for our community as to what's considered workforce housing thresholds.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Katie.
Other questions? Discussion? Ken, you got anything? Ken Buda, do you have anything?
Did you mute him?
No, I don't.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve or make a favorable recommendation to town council to remove the proffers as originally accepted and approved back in 2008 and are made part of the instrument 09002549 that address these 6 particular properties that are listed in the staff report.
Second.
Discussion?
I just think it's a great idea to get the proffers off.
Yeah.
Please, the hands.
No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just since we have people from the public here, this is going to public hearing for the town council at their meeting,
Right.
Next, third Thursday.
thank you, the third Thursday of this month.
Right.
So we encourage you to hopefully attend as well and offer your comments again.
Right.
We will, of course, include all of this in the staff report. All of this conversation will be part of the staff report that goes to town council.
Great.
Thank you. We have no new business. Report of officers and committees. Housing Committee Land Use Ordinance Barriers to Housing Development.
I
We didn't have anything in our packet, so,
You're correct, and that was on me. If you're not aware, I did get tested positive for COVID 2 weeks ago, so I was not able to get all of the elements of your packet finished before I went out sick. I'm now on the recovery end of things, so I'm able to at least attend tonight's meeting, but I wasn't able to finish that one piece of the packet for you. And I'm not sure the Housing Committee even met in the last 2 weeks. I haven't been around to
No.
find out, so.
no problem. So Paul, we wanted to at least let the board, the commission see
Yeah.
what's been done so far.
Out of the 8 factors.
We've done
finished
2.
with 2, 1 and 3, and we can get that out.
So if we can get that out to them before our next meeting.
Absolutely.
And then we can have that, and they can take a look at it and digest it and come up with any questions.
Yes.
That would be great.
For our subcommittee, I have finished the tables, finally extracting out the findings and recommendations, so ready to go to town on.
So we can come back into our regular weekly
Yeah.
calendar meeting
Well,
on
Friday
Friday.
I'm out, so.
I'm out for 2 Fridays, so sorry.
You're out for Friday as well?
I'm going up to Northern Virginia.
Okay.
I don't want to go there, but
So we'll touch on each other's schedule for the subcommittee, but we will get out the work product to date. I apologize, but when I
Okay.
went down, I just went down, so.
all right.
And with that, let me just say, I gave a presentation to Eastern Shore Coalition of Housing. We had an annual meeting last 2 Fridays ago, and good representation from Accomack. They had a lot of board of supervisors and county administrators, and then a little lighter on, but we had DHCD, Virginia Housing there, and a couple other subgroups. But I gave probably a half-an-hour presentation on the usefulness of this barrier study. I said, although it's only for the eastern, Northampton County, the findings are applicable really anywhere. So if somebody wanted to grab it in Accomack and go to town, all that information there. So I think we're on the leading edge of the spear here, and
And I thank you, for all the work that you've done in doing this, because he's put in a lot of time.
He is bloody amazing, yes.
So,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
thanks. Okay, so the next thing, moving right along, is the standing staff reports. And
Yes.
the interim planning and zoning administrator monthly report for October.
I do have a few items for you. While no subdivisions have been filed at the time of production of this report for October, I will tell you, I do have a few that have come in the last few days from Bay Creek, so I'll be adding some more to this for the next month. Again, to make you aware from the Board of Zoning Appeals, they have no hearings for October, and as of this point, we have none for November. We've received no applications. I do want to make you aware, they did approve the application that did come in, and they were hearing over the last 2 months for the corner lot on Washington and Bay Avenue. So they approved that with conditions, so we are still working on getting that staff report and that approval documentation out to the applicant, but that one will continue to move forward. They have many more steps to go to get to where they'd like to have 2 houses on those lots.
hey, can I just back up on the subdivision?
Sure.
The ones that are submitted are in accordance with their current PUD and/or water and wastewater tallies that we need?
I believe we will hold off approving these subdivisions because the town is still in conversations with Bay Creek relative to the timeline and costs associated with all future infrastructure development that needs to happen, including not just the installation of water and sewer lines into these subdivisions, but other ancillary components of the system, such as additional stations or
Right.
water towers, things
Yeah.
of that nature, which the town council has commissioned studies on this, and I know they have now in receipt of those, and I think they're going to start having conversations with negotiating the pricing responsibility between the 2 parties.
So if I separate out though the infrastructure, again, we keep pressing them to update their PUD.
Yes, and we're actually, thank you for saying that. We have actually created a shared website at this point with the PUD document. And they have put in substantial changes as
okay.
to what they'd be looking for the PUD document. I'm just starting that work for the town side of things. I took it home right before I got sick.
You're using excuse.
I got a lot on my plate, but, so yes, our plan is we'll be going back here in the next month or so with what could be potential changes from both sides as to the PUD
So could you
ordinance.
say within 3 months or so, we
Yes.
would be seeing
Yes,
public hearings on PUD changes and?
I believe so. The sequencing in my brain at this point in time is we needed to get through historic district guidelines first. We want
Right.
to do the comp plan second.
Yeah.
And then as part of the comp plan, there's going to be zoning changes coming.
Right.
And then after that would be the PUD ordinance.
Right.
To potentially also incorporate any zoning changes we made as a result of the comp plan.
So did you had the documentation drafted up between the town for subdivisions, and you had that in our last month's packet. Did that ever go to Bay Creek and?
Oh, yes, that's
Have they
actually.
signed it? Have they executed it?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
Because at this point, we were waiting for town council to be the ones to give their okay to the proposed language. They did at their
Right.
September calendars. And at this point, we've put it in motion, and I was sitting on 2 building permit applications relative to the new subdivision of Murfield Village. Those have now been executed by the 2 property owners and returned back to the community. As part of that language, as you recall, it puts them on notice that we have not accepted the Murfield Village water and sewer into the town system yet. So their advancement of any building permits are being done at their own risk, and with the knowledge that we cannot issue a certificate of occupancy on those projects until those systems are accepted by the town. And we are still awaiting those tests. We're, I think, now on round 3 of testing.
Holding their feet to the fire, so to speak?
Yes.
Good for you.
So,
There are very few organizations around here that actually do that.
so in that regard, all parties are anxious
Yeah,
to
okay.
make sure our approvals are done well, and we close out projects, including their water and sewer developments, because they didn't invest willy-nilly. They want it done right.
Right, oh, yeah.
So I know they are working hard to get the system acceptable to the town standards. So with that said, so as I mentioned, we have new subdivision applications that have come in. They, again, will be held. I'm still sitting on Village, I'm going to get it wrong, I think it's Village J. I've done my entire review of that preliminary plat and ready to sign off on it, with the exception being, we are waiting on resolution of the water and sewer responsibilities of the parties. And that's not the developer's obligation, but it's Bay Creek's obligation with the town, and the town has put them on notice. We really can't advance anymore until this gets resolved. So with that said, I've moved on from BZA. Historic District Guidelines. So again, last week, we held our joint meeting with all the comments. Those are all now with our consultant, and they're working on those. So our plan is we will give them the entire month of October to incorporate all of those comments, get final versions back to us of that document. And our plan, if it all goes well, is we will be out to public hearing in the month of December on the guidelines for the historic district, as well as a zoning text amendment that will be accompanying that. It actually will go first. The zoning text amendment goes first, because I need to fix Article 8, including the map and all the associated sections within Article 8, and potentially into Article 2, which are definitions. And then, that same night that the town council is holding that public hearing, which you would have already seen, they will be voting on the guidelines, because the guidelines do not require a public hearing. So we're going to get the public hearing moving first through the system on the zoning stuff, and then the same night that it's being proposed to the town council to adopt the zoning ordinance of Article 8, then they will vote on the guidelines as well. So we hope to have this wrapped up by the end of the year for the guidelines.
So let me just make sure.
Yes.
The zoning map obviously needs public comments, it and go through that process. The guidelines will just come to town council?
Yes, they don't require any further review by you or a public hearing by you. I, of course, will continue to share them with you because they definitely influence and factor what text amendments may need to happen, as we have seen in our review of the documents. So, we are now on to the next major project for us. As you've now received at last Thursday's meeting, you've gotten your copies of the comprehensive plan draft. And so we're doing a similar process as we did the guidelines. It is out now for public information, public review, public comment. So this coming Thursday, in 2 days, right back in this room, we're going to do a public meeting, basically for the consultant to be able to go through what's laid out in the document as a whole. It's going to be a short presentation. And really their presence here is to be able to answer any questions people have about it, comments that they have about it at this point in time. We want to encourage people to read through this. You have an entire month to get your comments back into the community. Similar process, we would want all the comments back in by the last Monday in October and submit them in writing to my office, and we will compile them again, and then we are coming back into a joint meeting of all the bodies, well, the Planning Commission, the Town Council, and our consultant to take up those comments and consider them. And then kick them all back out to the consultant and then give them another month to incorporate all of those. And then sometime in the month of December, I will outline a public hearing calendar for that document as well.
So again, Thursday night, we don't need to come with our list of questions.
No.
It's just,
It's a chance for you to hear from them initially. They're going to do, just like the Historic District consultants did, they did an overview of what changed in the document, what's in the document as a whole, how does it differ from our current comp plan, well, what did we try to incorporate, that kind of stuff. And then they really want to open it up to questions, comments, anything that people have some
Got a couple
thoughts
questions
on.
for 'em.
So I looked today, and the document that we received last week is not on the website.
Okay, we will
It
confirm
needs-
that
it
and,
needs- I couldn't find it.
okay,
It's not on the website. So that document needs to be put on the website.
yes, it does.
So,
We will make sure that happens, yes.
And Thursday's meeting starts at 6:30,
At
correct?
6:30,
Yeah, and
that's
then,
correct.
But conceptual questions, all, they're fine. then,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the date again, Katie, that you need comments from us?
It's
on
the last Monday of October. Let me tell you what that is. Calendar. That would be, I have 5 Mondays in October. That's terrible. I like it by the 24th.
24th of October?
Yes. Just because we are scheduled October 27th, the Thursday of that week, to be in that joint meeting to review those comments. I didn't realize there were 5 Mondays in October.
Is that enough time for you to?
You don't want edits like
Yeah.
if the index says it's page such and such and it's not page, you
Do
don't
you
want
want
that.
it-
No, I don't want those. They'll do the repagination.
Right.
None of that's really final at this point, just because they knew there were going to be changes both in formatting and content.
Yeah,
So they'll do that repagination again.
so do you want us to give comments like on a spreadsheet, like they had for the guidelines?
You can submit them however you would care to. I'm going to put them in that same format.
Okay.
It would be helpful if you would give me the page reference
All right.
versus the
Yeah.
section reference. I tried to catch those each and every time, but I didn't catch all of them.
The page reference,
The
right?
page reference would be useful, and then launch into what your comment is.
All right.
Yes.
On the what?
Public forum page.
The public forum page? Okay, well, I looked, in planning and everything else, but a public forum.
Well, that's because that's where it's listed now because of
Okay.
the Thursday, October 6th.
but is the Thursday night a listed meeting night?
It is.
And is the plan attached to that agenda?
it should be attached to that, and then we'll also make sure it's on the comprehensive plan update page
Yeah.
as well, as a
Okay.
link there also.
Okay.
No, well,
Yes.
it's not attached, it's its own, it's this draft comprehensive plan.
But I'm saying if a person goes to our meeting listing, the
Yes.
agendas,
So on the
you'll be able
homepage-
to
And
find,
it's on the homepage.
yeah,
On the homepage where it
Okay.
says meetings and events, October 6th is listed as this public forum, and that link is there.
that's where they can find it.
Okay, all right, all right. Guess I should have gone to the source, you know, I
That's
figured
okay.
we have comprehensive plans on 2 different sites, so,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
So again, we're looking at a relatively quick turnaround of some of this and of the comprehensive plan. So potentially, right now, we are envisioning that we're going to bring the comp plan to public hearing in November. So, doesn't mean that can't change, depending on what those comments are that come in, but right now, that's what we're trying to aim for. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Just as a little bit of feedback, there were 2 to-dos given to me as author of the economy section. There are 2 discussions completely missing from the economy section. One, the 5-year breakout of town revenues by category, which was to Bill's comment about having stakes in the ground for further versions of the comp plan, so we
Okay.
get a trend. 2, discussion on harbor finances.
Oh, okay,
So, and that was Paul's comment.
okay.
So,
No, I'm not saying that there
No,
aren't
no.
going to be substantial comments coming
yeah, yeah,
in.
right. And
I really don't know.
I'll send you an email on that,
So I
that's no
said,
problem.
part of this was my boss wanted us to keep
Yeah,
a
yeah.
forward movement
Yeah,
calendar.
absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely, yep, I'll agree.
So, again, we are hoping that we bring the adoption of the comp plan to fruition before the end of this calendar
Yeah,
year.
and
I
that
will
still
tell
may
you
happen,
that.
that still may happen. Yeah, Okay,
I am now working, just so you're aware, I've been with staff, we've gone through the entire zoning ordinance, we have compiled a list. That's getting ready to be submitted to our consultants so they can start prepping the next round of phase 2 of their work, which is zoning ordinance updates that need to happen.
Okay.
So, and part of that, I'm about to share that with you as a whole, and we're also going to share with them the work of the housing subcommittee will go to the consultant as well, for them to incorporate as part of the zoning changes that need to happen. So, we are rapidly working on lots of things in this department to finish projects that I think have been on your radar screen for a period of time, so. And that's all I've got.
Well, thank you, and thank you and Tracy for doing yeoman's work, thank you.
yes, absolutely,
Under
absolutely.
less than ideal circumstances.
Right, right.
Are there any other announcements? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.